Hello everyone, I'm your JS professor. So today we will be learning about the where keyword in JavaScript. But before that, I would like to suggest please go through the earlier video about lexical environment before going through this video because we will be applying it in this concept today. Thank you. So today we will be learning about a special keyword in JavaScript called where. So we all must be knowing that we have faced many times a question, what is the difference between var, let and const? And most of us have the definition that var is hoisted, whereas let and const are not. And second difference is that var has a function scope and whereas let and const has block level scope. So today we will be learning about what does it mean actually. No block scope. What does it mean? So in our last video on lexical environment, we have understood that scope is at three levels, at script level, then at function level, then at code block level. And what does code block means? Any type of code block like if, like for loop, and even an empty brace, whatever you write inside this empty brace without any keyword also, that is also a code block. So let's test our theory first. I have an example. Here it is a if block, so it's a code block, and I have declared a variable called lang, which has a value JavaScript with a keyword where. And outside the code block, I'm trying to console log it. So what will happen? See, we can see the value as JavaScript. Why? Because variables declared with keyword where does not have block scope. Then what will it have? It will have either the function scope or a script scope. Now, how we will decide whether it is a script or a function scope? Then we will go back to our theory of lexical environment. So we know that variable has been declared inside these braces, and outside these braces, there is only one lexical environment, that is that of a global one associated with the whole script. So here we can say in this first example that lang variable has a script scope, right? And just to verify our conclusion, we will test it with let keyword as well. So the moment I made it let, it is throwing me reference error. So what does it mean? That lang is not visible outside this code block, right? Okay. Now, the second property about where. It allows you redeclarations. Let's see it in action. So here what I did, I have the same variable name. I declared it two times with different values. So what will be the output? Let's see. It is saying TypeScript. So what what happened here? It took the latest value. Whereas if you would have used the let keyword, see in the compiler itself, I don't even have to run it. It is telling you that cannot declare block scoped variable lang again. Okay. Now let me just go back to the first property of no block scope again with another two examples. For example, if we use it in a for loop. Generally, we use a for loop so that we have the iterator that finishes inside the for loop. That is why in your code generally you have multiple for loops with I as its iterator. But if you see it here, I am console logging the I outside the for loop, and also inside the for loop I have the same variable name lang with a var keyword, and I is also having a var keyword. So now let's see the output. See, now I has a value 10, so that is being printed, and then the value of lang is being printed. So this shows us that var has no block scope. So again, in this example also, it will be having a script scope because uh, outside this code block, there is only one lexical environment which is associated with the whole script. Now let's understand this concept with one more example. So what I did here, inside the function, I created the code block. Here it is if it is always true, and then I have the same variable with a var keyword and a value as JavaScript. So we know from our previous discussion on lexical environment that as soon as you give a call to a function, a new lexical environment is created, right? And since var has no block scope, so automatically it will go into the lexical environment of its outer scope. Outer scope is that of the function itself. So now it won't be having a script level scope, it will be having a function level scope. Let's test it. So it is saying JavaScript. Whereas if I comment this out and try to access it outside the function, so what will happen? It is a reference error. Why? Because where although do not have a block scope, but here it is only visible inside the function because automatically it has a function scope in this example and not the script scope. Okay, so moving forward, now let's talk about which we always say that where variables are always hoisted. So let's see it in action. So there is a function named func, again same variable with the same value. I'm console logging it before and declaring it later, and then I'm calling the function. So let's see what will be the output. Let me just save it. So we are able to see the output because as we have learned in the previous video, the moment call to the function happens, a new lexical environment is created, and at the start of the lexical environment itself, it gets to know about all the variables in its scope. So here in the function scope itself, no matter where you declare the variable, it knows about the variable beforehand. It is there with the value undefined, not equivalent to let keyword where the value was uninitialized till the declaration is not hit. Here it is similar to function declarations that it knows about the variables at the start of the lexical environment itself. And if I just change the line, I try to print it before assigning the value, then we all know what would be the output. It would be, let's see, undefined. Why? Because although it knows about the variable, but its values has not been assigned yet. But the moment I make it let, it will be a error. Let's see. The moment I made it a let, so cannot access. Why? With the let keyword, the lang variable is known at the start of lexical environment, but it is an uninitialized state, which is different than undefined state. Undefined, it becomes only at declaration, which is at line 43. Okay, moving forward, there's one more example. So here what we did, I have the var keyword with lang as our variable name, but defined inside a if block, that to a false value. So which means this if block never executes. So what do you think the output would be? Let's test it. See, we are we are able to see the output as JavaScript. Why? Because again, same method. At line 55, the function get called, a new lexical environment get created, and it gets to know about the variable in its scope at the start of lexical environment itself. And since this lang is declared with the keyword var, so it does not have this block scope. It will be having a scope outside the block, which is immediately the function scope. So again, this example becomes equivalent to the one which we just studied above. Okay. When let and const were not there, there was only var keyword and it was not having block scope. So there was one way to achieve the block scope for a variable defined with the var keyword. And what it is called? It is called immediately invoke function expressions, or in short form IIFE. Okay, so how does it look? It looks like this. When you put the whole definition of the function itself inside two parentheses and then call the function at that time, so the function get called at, at the very moment it is defined, and you achieve a block scope. And how? We apply our lexical environment theory. So at the function call itself at line 65, the lexical environment gets to know about its variable, which is lang here, and we will be able to see the output. Let's run it. So we are able to print JavaScript. So this is a way, a workaround to fool the JavaScript engine that this lang has a block scope. How? By creating the lexical environment on the fly, on the call of the function itself. Now, two things to know about IIFE. First, you cannot remove parentheses. You cannot remove parentheses. For example, if I remove it, what will happen? It is already showing an error because by putting the parentheses, we make it as an function expression. So we have talked about that generally when you put a function calls, for example, let fx is equal to some, let's say some function is there whose name is func, and we made a call to it. So we call it, this kind of statement we call a function expression. So why it is called a function expression? So you are using a function inside an expression. By putting the whole function inside the parenthesis, I'm trying to tell the JavaScript engine that it is an expression and you have to call the expression. It is equivalent to if this function would have been in a variable and I am trying to call that variable, because we generally do that, right? Let fx is equal to func, and there is a call to the function. Suppose func is returning a function, then I directly put the calling braces after the variable name, right? So it is similar to that. Instead of the variable name, we have write the function definition itself, right? And second mistake which we could not do is do not give a name to it. For example, you cannot give name. Why? Because JavaScript engine generally consider a function with a name as function declaration. Okay, moving forward. So there are four other ways you can declare an IIFE. How? You can put the parenthesis only outside the function definition and putting the calling parenthesis after it, and you can wrap around the parenthesis around the whole thing, and you can use a bitwise not operator at the start of the function and then call it after the ending brace, or you can use a unary plus and you can call it at the end of the closing brace. So these are the four ways. If I show you the output also, see, everything got printed. Having said that, where has one more unique property. So you must be wondering why we are learning about where if we have already introduced let and cons to achieve a block level scope. So it's like in all the libraries, you must have seen still today all the minifiers do behind the scenes the converting of the variables into var keywords, and you will see a lot of IIFAs, immediately inferred function expression, in those libraries minified. So if you're working at a library level or you are working with a very old script, to have understanding of var keyword along with IIFE will able to make you understand the code better, and also will make your debugging skills very good. So there's one more property of var keyword, that is it is part of global object. So in browser, the global object is window. In Node.js, it is global. And although there is a standard that nowadays it is called global this, which is a global object across all JavaScript platforms. But however, for this video, we will be considering only on window. So, for example, in the console itself, I say var a equal to 10. So now it is not inside any code block, not inside any function. So by default, it is at a script level. So what happens? If I print window object, we can see A10. See, so it becomes the property of the window object automatically. Whereas if you use a let or a const keyword, for example, b equal to 20, and I again print window, you won't be able to see b, right? And this thing only happens if you are not using modules in JavaScript. If in an enterprise application, if you use import and export and modules, then this thing does not work. Now the question arises that why this feature of var keyword is helpful. It is helpful to create polyfills. What is a polyfill? So suppose if you are writing a program for a very old browser where the new constructs of JavaScript does not exist, then you can take the help of a window object or a global property to create a polyfill. For example, what kind of code I am trying to say, that suppose there is a promise object Okay, so you can say if there is not any promise object in your browser window dot promise, then you just assign a object to it and whatever you want to define it in whatever way. And also remember that it is always recommended not to create global objects because it creates to name collisions and many other issues. And if you get a situation where you have to create a global object, so it is always recommended that you explicitly create it. Window dot a equal to 10. That's all from my side, guys. Thank you so much.